die early. We die early. We'll go into that later. Okay, now, 2. What did Abraham believe the Egyptians would do if Sarah said she was his sister? He'll be killed. Okay, so that's quick. Was he right about what happened if he said Sarah was his sister? Was he right? It wasn't a lie. He said, tell them that I am your brother. Because if you don't tell them that, they will kill me and marry you off. And when he got there, the people in Egypt saw that Sarah was beautiful, and so asked that she be taken to the king's palace. And Abraham said that she's my sister, which is true too. It's a half truth. If we found out that Sarah was the daughter of Haran's brother, Sarah. Yes. No, Terah. Was it Terah or Terah's brother? Terah is Abraham's father. Well, okay, then it's good for him. in these times, we would say that is incest, right? It was allowed. Okay. You see, that is why we need to read. It helps us understand things better. I see you have a lot of questions on your face. Let's go through this and then we'll try and tackle the questions which relate to us. Now, there's a question here. Was he right about what happened if he said Sarah was his sister? Was he right? He was right because it actually happened. Yes. Yes. And the king took Sarah all right and gave Abraham cows and goats and donkeys and manservants and maidservants. Okay. Now, this is a tough one. How long was Sarah in Pharaoh's palace? How long was Sarah in Pharaoh's palace? Was it days? Was it weeks? Or months? Verse 16 and 17. Yes?
As soon as they arrived in Egypt, she was taken to the palace. And then I'm sure, again, I'm guessing, maybe days or weeks, but not years. Definitely not years.
Okay. Auntie Esther says that as soon as they arrived in Egypt, the princes saw that Sarah was beautiful. Now, remember when we read earlier, I said that Abraham was about 75 years old. Sarah was 10 years or so younger than him. So she was 65. All right? So 65 years old. The princes in Egypt saw her and said that this is a beautiful woman. She must come to the king. And as Abraham was rightly afraid, they said, who is she? He says, this is my sister. So then we can take her to the king, because only the king was entitled to beautiful women in Egypt. That is the rule. Every beautiful woman belonged to the king. If Auntie Fanny had been dead, she would have gone straight. But that was the rule, and he knew it. And he got cows, donkeys, etc., etc., etc. Now, we are not told how long that Sarah was in the king's palace. But I don't think that the first day she got there, then the people began to get sick. Because if we read that there was a plague in the family, in the home of the king, that will take some days. All right? So we are not told. But some time lapsed before it was found out. Who did God punish as a result of Abraham's life? Verse 17. Pharaoh. Now, why was Pharaoh punished? That's not here, but think about it. We'll come to it. Did Pharaoh harm Abraham as a result of his deceit? Verse 19, 20. Pharaoh did not harm Abraham. He just said, here is your wife, get out. Okay? Why do you think Pharaoh did not harm? Because he was known for being very callous. Why do you think that Pharaoh didn't harm Abraham? Uh-huh. Good. And Jester is saying that if the presence of that woman in his house caused plagues, and in other versions you read that there was barrenness and all sorts of things, would you touch such a person? Because worse things could happen. Okay, bad luck. Okay, yes, bad luck person in your household. Okay, all right. But what did he actually do? What did Pharaoh actually do? He rewarded, he said, take everything and go and leave my land. Now let's go to the interpretation. After reading this passage, what do you think of Abraham? Oh, let's be honest. Let's talk. He was dejected. He's dejected. Yes. Something else. He was selfish. He looked out for his own. I mean, he didn't want to die. Nobody wants to die knowing that you will die. But what else? So there was still selfishness there. Okay, what else? His faith was tested. Did he pass? Why do you say his faith was tested and he passed partially? She says that he was supposed to have gone to Canaan because God said, go there. So he should have believed when God said, go there, that when you get there, he will take care of you. But he decided to help God by lying. Or first, by moving to Egypt. You realize that in all the various passages that we read, God says to him, go here. God says to him, move. God says, but in this particular instance, we didn't hear God tell him anything. So he took the decision himself based on his view of the circumstances. You don't agree? Okay. Mm-hmm. Uh-huh.
Beginning, he says, I'll be with you and direct you. It's not everything that he will tell him, but the discernment of Isaiah. So that is why for God to manifest himself in Pharaoh's life, that there is a powerful God. If he hadn't told that lie, that would have been the end of it. She's my wife. He will be killed, and it will be another story for all of us. But he told that lie or planned whatever it is, so that Pharaoh will see that there's a more powerful God than what he worships.
She says that her perspective is that Abraham told a lie in assistance to God so that Egypt and Pharaoh will have the chance of knowing how strong God is. But, question, was God not able to protect him even in Egypt? Was he not? You see, this is part of the lesson we are trying to learn. God gives us a promise. Adverse circumstances come. What do? The temptation is to look at the circumstances and the situations and take our eyes off God. And sometimes we help God. But, the first time I read this, I was quick to judge Abraham. A few moments ago, God had told you, leave your country. Move here. And Abraham did not hesitate. He moved out in faith. We said it in this class. He moved out in faith. A lot of faith for a rich man who had houses, etc., to leave everything and go to a place where he lived in tents. That was a very good evidence of faith. And then a few moments later, or a few months later, here is the same person of faith telling a half-truth. It's half-truth, half-lie to save himself. Yes, you have a question. This one, death is involved, so you have to save his life. Juxtapose that against Daniel, who was going to be thrown into fire, heated 7 times or 10 times, or going to be thrown into a lion's den. Now, you see, Abraham was a man like us. Like I keep saying, sometimes when we read the biblical stories, because we know the whole story or we have the opportunity to see the whole story, it is easier to believe what happened. But when you look at the reality of what was happening, it was unfolding for him. Now, how does that relate to you? How does that relate to your trust in God? How does that relate to your faith in God? Especially after God has given you such fantastic promises. Auntie Teresa said something. God manifested himself in Egypt. Why did he manifest himself against the king? But he didn't say anything to Abraham at the time Abraham was lying. Have you thought about that? This is food for thought. Food for thought because we want to apply it to ourselves. What happens to us in our everyday life, in our circumstances? What happens to us? We know he says, I will be with you to the ends of the world. And nothing shall by any means hurt you. I will keep you in perfect peace, whose mind is stayed on me because he trusts in me. I wish above all things that you will prosper and be in good health, even as thy soul prospers. And you are brokamos more than the church mouse. Nowadays, even the church mouse have been chewing the organ cables. But how do you look or trust God in the face of adversity? We saw Abraham and we saw him fail. I'm asking you to think about these things because it happens to us in our everyday life. It happens to us. And should we trust God or we should help God? You see, this was not the first or the last time Abraham tried to help God. As we go on, we will see. How do you think Pharaoh found out that Sarah was Abraham's wife? How do you think he found out? She's asking whether it was revealed to him. Anytime, any other opinion? Somebody?
Sickness that he had.
Sorry, one moment. Let's yeah. So who's good? Yeah.
The type of sickness that was inflicted on the household wasn't an ordinary sickness. So I'm sure from a past experience they knew that he has committed a taboo or something, abomination or something.
Auntie Esther is saying that the kind of sickness that landed in the house, it must have struck Pharaoh that no, this is not normal. Okay? Auntie Ifani, you are going to say something.
I think maybe when Pharaoh was about to take Sarah into bed, Sarah must have confessed.
There's also that possibility that Sarah may have confessed. But we know that God put a plague in that house. Now you know that the Egyptians had a lot of seers, sorcerers, as magicians, etc., etc. If you remember the story of Moses and the snake, Moses threw the stick down, it became a snake. And the Egyptian sorcerers also did similar. Yeah.
Sarah,
Yeah.
coming from, they're going to Canada. She was a foreigner in Pharaoh's house.
Yeah.
And like you said, their beliefs and everything. This is the only place in the house. And as soon as a person came, things are happening. So it's part of their thinking and everything.
Okay. Titi says that Sarah was the strangest or the newest stranger in the house. So when, this is speculation, okay? So when the plagues and the rest started happening, the natural culprit was you were last to come. So you brought it to the house. There's that possibility. All right, there's that possibility. And also the sorceress, because like Auntie Esther said, because of the plague and the sicknesses that came into the house, the king may have consulted and said that, what happened? Why is this happening? And then no, from what we read, he did not touch her. Because if you read his answer, he said, why did you tell me this? Otherwise, I would have taken her as my wife. So it meant that that thing didn't occur. And God made sure. But think of it. This was Sarah who, I'm sorry, I come to you, who was going to be the fulfillment of God's promise of plenty children in the family. In the generation after generation. And a king touches her. Wouldn't that have corrupted God's promise? Food for thought. You are going to ask a question.
Why God did not punish Abraham, but rather punished Pharaoh? He didn't know.
Yes. Her question is, why did God punish Pharaoh and his whole household, and he didn't punish Abraham? Yes, somebody, unfinished. He said unfinished, she said unfinished.
25 years for that child to come.
Okay. So there probably was a punishment. From Auntie Esther's opinion, it took 25 more years before the son of promise came about. Could it have been because Abraham was lying by heart? ITC still believes that God may have spoken to Abraham, but it may not have been written. Anyway, it leaves a lot for speculation. But the facts here is what we want to focus on. The facts here. What do you do when God gives you a promise and adversity comes? If you look at the title of the passage we are studying, it says, when doubt and fear overcome faith. When doubt and fear overcome faith. So when we live here and we trust God, situations will come that will test our faith. Situations will come that will shake our faith. Situations will come that will challenge our belief of God. What do you do in those circumstances? It is important. Abraham is dead and gone. We are here. And we live daily in this world. The challenges will come. How do we deal with them? How do we deal with them? Take time to study this again. It is very important because these provide for us guidelines as to how we live. It is not easy. I don't think it was easy for Abraham. Well, somebody said that we men are jealous of our wives. I'm wondering what went through Abraham's mind. Even though he had lied and Sarah had been taken to the king's palace, no man can stand another man touching his wife. This is a man talking, so only men know what it is. You can only opinion. Yes. But think about this. Next week we'll continue. God bless.
Thank you.
Our gradual hymn is Ancient and Modern, 739, 739.